He didn't bring that up for that reason. He's bringing this up because he really wants the ladies to know that he's not gay.
We want to know what tastes bad in the butterfly
I'm gonna
analogy.
guess penis.
Oh, penises are disgusting, are they, Cam? Let's get into that. I don't care about the original conversation either now. Let's get into what Cam Higby thinks about penises. He doesn't need to get into his weird psychosexuality like every time. He can just ask like relevant questions.
Sorry, that's just anti-trans.
This Cam Higby guy, he goes around, he does the kind of Charlie Kirk-esque kind of stuff, debating people on college campuses, not investing a huge amount in security. I can't say I'm a fan of his. His arguments aren't super compelling. He was one of the ones joining in on all the, like people were criticizing Charlie Kirk post-mortem. He was going around like sharing things on Twitter trying to get people fired. I didn't think that was cool. So we got leftist claims gender goes by identity, then flounders when asked this question. Let's have a look.
I guess I'll sort of lump the first two together and then kind of talk about that. The men can't be women and kids can't be trans. I think to start, it's important.
Kids can't be trans is a really dumb argument in my opinion. I don't see what about trans precludes children. The problem isn't whether they can be or not. The problem is whether they ought to transition or not. And just this kind of blanket, oh, well, they don't exist in the first place and they can't exist. Like, that doesn't work. And there's always going to be that bone of contention where it's like, oh, well, people know trans children. Someone you know probably has one, regrettably.
I'll sort of lump the first two together and then kind of talk about that. The men can't be women and kids can't be trans. I think to start, it's important to acknowledge that language is fluid and that the meanings of words change.
Yes.
Throughout history, that's happened, over and over. That's pretty easy to agree to, right?
Yep.
And I think in the last probably 15 to 20 years, one of the shifts that has occurred.
Charlie Kirk wouldn't have supported people being fired. Yeah, I agree. It's not really fair to his legacy to try and shut down any criticism of him post-mortem. I don't know too much about Charlie Kirk. I'm not really a huge fan of his. He does seem like someone who probably would prefer that people were as free as possible in most cases. Certainly when it comes to like their speech and them sharing their opinions. Because that's ultimately kind of what he died doing, right?
Is the definitions of gender, where for a long time the definition of gender was something that was intrinsically linked to biological sex.
For a long time, gender was sex. And if you're talking about someone's gender, you are talking about their sex. Just that gender is also used to mean other things.
And in the last 15 to 20 years, that has shifted. And so when we say that something, or when we say that someone is a man or someone is a woman, we're referring to gender and we are no longer referring to biological sex, which would be male or...
Yeah, so we need to make a new definition of gender.
Be male or female assigned out.
So really it's, well, if gender isn't sex, then what is it? We need an actual definition of it.
At birth.
And do you think colloquially that's what the majority of people mean? Do you think that the majority of people in the country, when they see a transgender woman, look at that person and view them no differently than that woman right there?
I don't know. I don't have the information to know that 51% of the people that say men are referring to biological sex or...
I think most people do mean male people when they say men, ultimately. That doesn't mean there isn't another usage of it, but I think it's fair to say that most people do just mean a male person. Like when I call this person a man, when I call Cam Higby a man, it's because they're male. I'm not thinking about their identity. I'm not, speculating that they feel this or that way about themselves based on their appearance. No, I just know that they are both biologically male. It's just kind of obvious. And if it's not obvious, then it's a trans man that passes extraordinarily well. And in that case, yeah, I'll get fooled sometimes. That's fine. It's okay if I'm wrong about someone's sex once in a while.
Or gender.
I would find it hard to believe that 20% of the population would believe that a transgender woman is the same as that woman right there.
So we'll use that in a sentence. There's a man over there?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's a man over there. We're talking about a person.
Transgender woman?
If I would say that majority of the time, if someone were to use the sentence, there is a man over there, they're referring to someone that is masculine presenting.
No, I think that
Well, no, they think they're male. Most people will say it because they think they're male. You just kind of make a snap judgment as to whether you think a person is male or female. And it makes sense that you do that. There'll be this evolutionary thing where you'll need to be able to separate the two, otherwise how would humans have reproduced and survived to this point? We don't, most people don't do it based on presentation. Because most butch lesbians, you can infer that they're actually female. And you don't call them a man because it's kind of offensive to assume. Because they dress a certain way, they must actually be a man, usually. It's when the identity thing gets into it, starts becoming complicated. But I just reject the idea that the reason we refer to people using certain pronouns, or as man or woman, is because of their presentation. It isn't really. The presentation factors into it, but...
Or not a man, somebody with a penis.
How would they know?
Okay.
Patriot Tommy Boy. Okay, I'll have a look.
I mean, there's a couple ways that they would know, but
thank you.
I don't think we need to get into those exactly, but
you can
I don't think that they would know.
You can...
Okay, I couldn't hear a word because they're both talking over each other.
The penis.
Masculine presenting.
No, I think that
and
they're
whether
referring
or
to
not
a man, somebody with a penis.
How would they know?
Well, they don't know. They make that judgment, right? You don't know. What you see is not objective reality. You see your perception of reality.
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple ways that they would know, but I don't think we need to get into those exactly. But
you can
I don't think that they would know.
You can almost always tell. There are very few situations where you actually can't tell.
I don't know if we have the information to...
I trust you. I've dealt with them. I've seen them.
I think you can always tell thing is a bit cringe, to be honest. Truthfully, you make that judgment. You see someone, yeah, you're going to get fooled once in a while, especially if it's a trans man who is decently in shape. You can't really see his body shape looking different to a male's. Maybe he's a bit shorter. He's got the voice and the facial hair, and he's presenting the right kind of way. There are people that will fool you, but it doesn't actually matter that much. It's not the end of the world if you refer to someone as something other than their sex assigned at birth, right? But that doesn't mean that we base it on presentation. It just means that we make those judgments based on what we see, which is a combination of their presentation and, their genetics and stuff like that. And you make a decision, and you're wrong occasionally, and that's fine. It's not the end of the world.
I have the information.
So that's your experiences?
Yes, I can tell immediately.
Okay, so according to your experiences, most of the time you can tell the difference.
Can I get a hand?
This guy taking the mic off of him. Someone knows that this argument is dog shit.
Okay, so according to your experiences, most of the time you can tell the difference.
Can I get a hand raised?
This is a really dumb argument so far. They're both kind of talking past each other, and they're both being a bit dense. If you see, let's say you see a trans man who passes perfectly well, and you call them a he, you're calling them a he because what you see, you decide that must be a male person in general. You might get some people that have kind of rewired the way they think of these things, and they just look out for presentation. Most people, they're going to see what they see, they're going to assume a person is either male or female, and they're going to be wrong occasionally, and that's fine.
When you see a transgender person, can you tell? Okay.
My eyes burn.
It's pretty much everyone can tell.
But that's that statement in itself has an important flaw because you wouldn't know the times that you wouldn't be able to tell.
There are a few exceptions. There are people who are so-called
you wouldn't
passing,
know.
and it's okay, if I saw them on the street, I might not be able to tell, but that doesn't change the truth about the matter.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know that you couldn't tell.
But if I were to know more information, then I would say, that's a man, that's not a woman. And also, we have many instances in nature, we have the monarch butterfly. There's another butterfly that looks much like it. Birds don't really like the monarch butterfly because it tastes nasty. You also have lots of instances of poisonous snakes and poisonous bugs, and then you have a butterfly that looks like the monarch butterfly. It doesn't taste nasty, but it appears to be that way to fool the birds. If you saw it, you might think that's a monarch butterfly, but if you make that statement, you are wrong. It's not to say there's something evil about you saying that, you were mistaken, but you are incorrect. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think that really changes anything about...
So to say that the butterfly that isn't a monarch butterfly is a monarch butterfly is incorrect.
Right. You're being fooled by the butterfly.
Because biologically there's a difference between, and that brings me sort of, we circle back, right, to the definition of biological male and the definition of biological female is different now, I think, than the definition of male.
I mean,
and
if
women.
you're talking strictly about like
A man and a woman.
what these words are,
A biological male and female, any person that hears that will assume you're talking about like natal male and female. It's just used the exact same way.
actually physically.
And truthfully, like biological male is very redundant. You can just say male or female because those words refer to sex. And if you're saying someone is male gendered, you're still talking about their sex. It's the same thing. So you might as well just say male. That's also redundant.
Defined as in the dictionary, it hasn't changed. So Oxford still defines.
Yeah, you'll get animals that mimic other animals. Truthfully, being trans and like transcending which gender you're perceived as is about mimicry. And some people find that offensive. I personally don't. Like, yeah, I do kind of cover what women have in a certain way. So I mimic. You know what I mean? The point he's making is you might see a monarch butterfly and think it's something else or the other way around. You're still wrong in your assessment that you see a butterfly that's not a monarch butterfly and you say that's a monarch butterfly. Just like you can be wrong and see a male person and because they pass as a female, be like, oh, that's a female person. You can be wrong in your assessment. But I mean, that isn't the same. Like, he's actually kind of going against like Cam's kind of you can always tell kind of stuff. I think this guy is a little more intelligent than Cam.
A woman as an adult human female, and female as a person that falls into the sexual category capable of bearing children and producing ova.
Is that what it says in the Oxford
Exactly.
Dictionary?
Yeah. Do you want me to pull? I can pull it up for you if you want.
I believe.
Why do we need to refer to the dictionary?
You. That's okay.
That's what it says. Yeah.
I also think that when people use words, it's not always exactly what the dictionary says.
But it's.
And I think that
You were talking about
things
what the
change.
definitions are.
There's a what are the words? Denotation and connotation.
Yeah, the problem is, if he said that there's kind of a different definition nowadays, he probably should just kind of give it. And like, it wouldn't be, well, what's the most accepted? It'd be like, well, what's the best? Well, I think that this definition of man and woman that is inclusive to trans people is better for this, that, and the other reason, and kind of go down those lines. But we're not really doing that so far.
Right.
Right.
But I think. But again, this goes back to the question I asked you: is when.
And hearing TRA's trans people use male and female as gender terms, I'm transitioning to female. Well, I mean, you can't really blame them. You can't really blame someone for saying I'm transitioning to female because one of the accepted terms for a trans person would be male to female or female to male. So you see that quite a lot, like MTF, FTM. So you can't really blame them for using that. Like, just because someone is using that kind of language where you can't actually change your sex, and that is what they're suggesting, it doesn't mean that they're like doing some kind of language trickery. They're probably just using language that is like used often, if that makes sense.
When we look at the majority of people in this country, what do they mean when they use the word? And I think the majority of people probably mean exactly what it says in the dictionary. I think that a lot of people bend to the whims of transgender people and call them women or call them her when they're not hers or they're not women, just so they don't get canceled, because there's a lot of pressure on them, especially in places like this at universities, that cause them to do these things so they don't lose friends, they don't fail their classes for being bigots, they don't get kicked out of school, they don't get reported for being bullied or bullying, being bullies, etc. Right? There's a lot of pressure on them to do these things, but I bet you the majority of them don't actually think that a trans woman is the same as a normal woman, because they're not the same.
I mean, that's probably true, sure.
Okay, there's a couple things there. First off, I think that, I mean, I don't know, because again, I don't have the like exact.
I'm sorry, like, as much as I agree with what he's saying, it's just such a dumb fucking argument. Do most people see trans women as women or men? That's just a really stupid argument to even have. I'm sorry. Of all the avenues you can go down with what's been presented so far.
Exact information, but I doubt that the Oxford Dictionary is as current as what is colloquial.
They
I bet
update it
words
frequently.
change faster than the Oxford or the dictionary change. I don't know.
Words change faster. We've been using woman and man to refer to trans people for like a long time. The problem is, if you give a trans-affirming definition after the original definition, they're like completely different. They're describing two sides of a mutually exclusive thing as both the same.
Online Oxford updates constantly. Like they're
So another
always
thing,
changing it.
what did I have? Another thing that I think, or one of the points now that becomes more important is that, is it good or bad to acknowledge this sort of transition or change, assuming that the change is existing, right? I'm sorry. So the next one was that
it's artificial.
people that see, or colloquially, are we referring to a man or a woman? And again, I think that there's a flaw in the logic that's saying that, well,
Like, it's asking if it's a good or a bad change. It can be okay. It can be okay to use the word woman to refer to trans people when they're not actually a woman in the traditional sense. It can be okay. I think it becomes a problem when we start kind of reaffirming a more kind of delusional mindset where you literally have become like female somehow now. Or there's something inside of you that means that although you were born male, you're actually secretly a female, and no one will ever see that thing to check. So they take your word for it and take your presentation as a sign of that, when that means adhering to like stereotypes, which is what a lot of people want to get away from. You know, a lot of branches of feminism want to move away from because they see that as like overwhelmingly like harmful to women.
you can tell when someone is trans. You can't. You can only tell when someone is trans, and it's clear because you don't know the times that you don't
You can only tell someone's trans when you can tell they're trans.
know, right? If someone is biological male
fine, but it boils
that
back
is
down to-
female presenting, but it is so
And we go right
good
back to,
of a transition that you
back to
can't
Ben's
tell.
argument.
You don't know those times.
Yeah.
Definitionally, you can't know what you
But
don't
it
know.
doesn't matter because our argument isn't that women are people who look like women. Our argument is that women are adult human females, and as Ben said before, there are butterflies that look like monarch butterflies that aren't, and if you mistake that butterfly that isn't a monarch butterfly for a monarch butterfly, you've
Sounds so much more confident when he's literally just saying the same argument that his mate said.
been fooled, and you're incorrectly assessing that this is a monarch butterfly. The assertion that it is one is false.
Okay.
Right? So we could get on an even playing field here, and if you present me a definition of a woman, what you think a woman is, I'm willing to operate off of that definition, but what is it?
Okay, that's what I think is the real crux of this conversation. And
Yes, I'm glad we're finally getting here after well over 7 minutes, Jesus.
where this becomes important. If the monarch, you said the monarch butterfly tastes bad? Okay, yeah. And so if a bird makes a mistake and eats that monarch butterfly and it tastes really nasty, there has been a harm to that bird because it ate a butterfly that was gross,
Yeah.
I guess. The issue then becomes is this transition in language, is this change in definitions, is it good or bad? And
yeah,
is there
definitely
a
harmful in the
harm?
same way.
Is there a harm to calling someone what they prefer to be called?
I don't think it's a necessary, like, yes, it's always harmful to refer to someone as the other sex to what they are. It really depends. Some people, they just have that preference, and you can choose to refer to them that way or not, and it's not an issue, and they don't actually think they're a woman. They're just aware that they have these preferences. So it can be fine, and it can be harmless. I think sometimes it gets taken too far. I think it gets taken too far when you start insisting that everyone else has to call someone something that you don't want to call them. I think it can be harmful when someone is actually kind of delusional and you're actually just kind of, contributing towards that. But that's not even all trans people. So I feel like, once again, I'm going to be somewhere in the middle between these two.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there is.
Yeah, there is, and I'll tell you exactly.
So it's like, there's no harm, there is harm. To me, it's like, well, there's potential harm, That's usually where the sense lies, I find.
Actually, this is almost perfectly analogous to the monarch butterfly. If somebody is looking...
Oh my God. I'm sorry, man. Whenever he's like trying to rattle off an argument by himself, it's like he's kind of unsure sounding. He'll refer to things like the dictionary. He doesn't really sound like he knows what he's talking about. Whenever someone else brings an argument, this is the second time he's repeating it. And he's like so much more confident now because someone else has given him an argument. Like, fuck me, dude. I don't know, Matt. It's just the way that these are the ones that go around debating people. You'd think they'd have shit down.
outwardly just like a woman, and I mistake them for a woman, and let's say I decide to go sleep with them and they pull out a penis, I am going to...
This is an insanely extreme example. Like at that point, yeah, you've got a case for like sexual assault by deception. Usually all you're doing is calling someone a she when they've actually got a penis and you didn't realize, which is not actually any harm to anyone.
Be mortified. I'm probably going to walk away with post-traumatic stress. It's going to be disgusting, right? I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to anybody. So it's
I'm going to get PTSD, dude.
Certainly causes harm there. Furthermore, when you pretend that men are women when they are not, this puts them or gives them the opportunity to be put in women's spaces. I personally...
Not by itself. You could say that, you know, taken to an extreme, if we're told that we have to refer to like male people as females sometimes, and that means we also have to let them into spaces. And I would say, yeah, I think that's probably an example of being taken too far. But we're going from A to B when there's all this stuff in the middle that we're just completely cutting out of the equation. Like, these are potential harms, sure. But we're talking about just referring to a male person as a female. You can't say that this is a necessary outcome of just affirming one trans person's gender identity.
I have friends who swam on the UPenn. Thank you so much. I personally have friends who swam on the UPenn women's swim team and had to change in a locker room with Leah William Thomas, who had a penis and had previously dated a member of that swim team. You know, like, incredibly uncomfortable for those girls, right?
I agree, this is bad. Why are we talking about this when it's about whether you should refer to trans people as their gender identity or not?
And in women's bathing suits, especially like competitive racing suits, when they're wet, they take a long time.
I think what I'd like to ask Cam maybe is like, well, what if we got culture to a point where trans people don't want to take on every single facet of social life as a female? They just, in general, would prefer to be called a she. Would you say then there's not really a harm? Where trans people aren't getting onto women's teams and trans people aren't using like other sex spaces and stuff? I'd wonder about that, to be honest.
To change out of, because they're wet and they're like suction cup to your body. So not only is William Thomas...
Wait, what the fuck did he say that?
Especially like competitive racing suits, when they're wet, they take a long time to change out of, because they're
Oh, okay, no, I get it.
wet and they're like suction cup to your body. So not only is William Thomas now exposed completely and his male genitalia to these women, they're also exposed to him, this big, brawny, broad-shouldered man.
This is so fucking off topic.
Who is indistinguishable from a man with long hair. I mean, he doesn't look like a woman. He's got an Adam's apple, a strong jawline, huge, broad shoulders, big biceps. He's a dude.
Okay, let's say he wasn't allowed in the swim team and he wasn't allowed in any women's spaces. Someone still wants to call him a her because he identifies as a woman. In abstract, is there really a harm there? I don't necessarily think that's the case. You could say that it leads to stuff like that, but we're so far ahead of where the conversation should be at.
Okay, there's a couple things that we're hitting there. The first, I think, is that if in a hypothetical situation you're a person that is out at the bars and you're trolling, I guess, in the old definition of trolling, in that we're just sort of looking around for someone to bang out, and you're meeting a person and your only goal is sexual gratification, and you run into someone that is a man that you thought was a woman, that's unfortunate for you, but you've put yourself in a sort of weird bind there that I think ethically,
it's not even
potentially,
just you're
right?
out looking
where
for
like ideally, in the ideal world, you're meeting someone who has a personality that you really vibe with and you've made a personal connection to, and now you want to express that physically. You know, is there a rough conversation that has to occur then? Probably.
No, there's no conversation.
You know, we're sort of a weird...
Well, listen, whether you're referring to a male person as a man or a woman does depend on whether they pass as female or not, ultimately.
Get out of my house. There's no...
and now you want to express that physically. You know, is there a rough conversation that has to occur then? Probably.
No, there's no conversation.
You know, we're sort of a weird situation that we've...
There's no conversation about it. So
because you're uncomfortable with who that person really is, or because
let
you're...
Let me respond.
Oh, I'm trying, but then...
Okay, so let me respond. So I'm not even just talking about you're out just looking for somebody to sleep with. You know, I meet somebody at a bar, maybe I vibe with them, I think they're a woman, I like them, we go on a couple dates, and then eventually...
Cam chaser confirmed.
It goes to more, right? And then I find out this person is actually a man. Now
He's 100% speaking from experience.
I'm upset because I've been fooled by this person, right? Who I thought...
Remember they were talking about referring to a male person as a man or a woman. It's like so strange, man.
Was a woman and isn't a woman, and I'm not into penises, right? So now I have a problem.
Sure.
And I'm in a bed...
He fooled me. I 100% thought he was into penises, to be honest. That's not a diss. I'm just surprised, is all.
...room with a person who's naked and has a penis, right? I don't want to see other
Again, experience.
men's penises. I don't care who it is. I don't want to see it, right? It's just, like, I just don't want to see it.
Right, but
I was going to say it's disgusting. Oh, penises are disgusting, are they, Cam? Let's get into that. I don't care about the original conversation either now. Let's get into what Cam Higby thinks about penises. Sounds like a much more interesting conversation.
Penises. I don't care who it is. ...room with a person who's naked and has a penis, right? I don't want to see other men's penises. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, not only very defensive about not being into penises, but being defensive about being into penises when no one was even fucking asking. He brought this up. This is like unforced.
I don't want to see it, right? It's just, like, I just don't want to see it.
Right, but I think in that situation, the more important issue there...
The lady does protest too much. Yeah, exactly.
...is that person has presented...
They've lied.
A lie. Yeah, that person has lied to you. And I don't think that...
Yeah, someone might commit a crime if you refer to a trans person as a she. To make sure you never do that, I guess.
If you've made a real intimate mental connection with...
Listen. If no one ever called trans women, this would never happen. You'd never be able to, like, stealth someone and, like, shock reveal them that you actually have a penis when they thought you had a vagina the whole time. If we don't affirm trans identities, for sure. Absolutely. Definitely how it works. Totally relevant to what I thought the conversation was supposed to be about.
With that person, I don't think the problem the problem is that they have lied about their penis, but I don't think the problem is that they have a penis. The problem is that they have lied, and there is a dishonesty.
Nope. The problem is that they have a penis,
but that they lied about it.
Well, that's a problem as well, but the problem for me immediately is this person is a man and I'm not into men. So goodbye.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
That's the immediate
That person has
there.
lied to you about something that is very vital to your interaction with them. Absolutely.
Think about this. What if I had HIV and didn't tell somebody and then went and slept with them?
And they lied about it.
Yeah, what if?
Yeah.
Then that problem is that they lied about it.
I just didn't tell you about it.
Yeah, by omission they have lied about some very important information that they should have.
But now this person who thinks they're a woman and is presenting as a woman is convinced by society that they are actually a woman and just the same as...
How do you know? Maybe they've been misgendered loads of times and you didn't misgender them.
Women, because you...
Maybe Cam is just super into like very masculine women, so occasionally he gets one that's actually like not just masculine but like male.
Want the language to change that includes them in the definition of women. You see the problem?
I see that.
Yeah, I see the problem. You seem to think that one follows from the other when people are always going to commit crimes. Someone is always going to be like, I'm a man, but like, what if I convince someone to sleep with me by pretending to be a woman? Someone might still do that in isolation. Haven't there been women that literally pretended to be like men or trans men in order to sleep with people? It came out that they weren't. Was that because trans men are referred to as he? I'm not sure if that's the case.
Actually lying because the language has changed to include them as women. They're not lying anymore.
When you meet someone...
This is like correlation versus causation as fuck. Well, more people are calling trans people by their gender identity now, so it must follow that someone might try and stealth me. Someone might try and surprise genitals me. Someone might pull a Kira Watkin on me, you know.
that is female presenting, you have the expectation that that person doesn't have a penis.
Yes.
And then if that person should know, if they're, you know, attempting to be honest and making an actual connection with you, that they should know that that is your expectation, because they live in the world and they know how the world works.
But you want to change the language to include that person in the definition of the woman. So you wanted me to tell you.
Doesn't that depend how they identify?
The problem with including those people in the language. This is the problem, because you're saying,
yeah, this is the problem. The problem with including trans people in language is Cam Higby's going to get stealth one day.
this person is at fault because they lied and didn't tell me that they're actually a man. But you don't think they're a man. You think they're a woman, and you want them to be included in the definition of a woman.
Yeah, you can still think it's a problem for a trans woman to not disclose that they've got a penis and include them in language. Two things can be true.
Right? So if they've just said, I'm a woman, and they're presenting as a woman, they haven't lied to me. There should be, theoretically, no problem there. But there is, because they're not a woman.
They have created an omission.
The lie
where
is
they should
the idea
have communicated
that they are a woman. That's...
What is he doing? He's like reaching for his cock or something. But they're both doing it.
They have created an omission.
The lie
where they
is
should
the
have
idea
communicated.
What is he doing?
That they are a woman. That's the lie. And that's the lie you want to perpetrate.
They should. Okay, so first off, we do want to identify a harm. I think that is because we want to know what tastes bad in the butterfly
I'm gonna
analogy.
guess penis.
I don't know, but there are some people. Anyway, probably not to everybody. But
For me,
again,
that's what tastes bad to me.
we have to. I guess
He's really insistent about this.
more like a moral taste. Yeah, I don't know.
Back on topic.
Do you want to do raise of hands again?
Back on topic.
We don't have to do that. Okay, so we're identifying the harm, right? And what is harmful about calling someone what they want to be called?
I just laid it out for you.
I don't think you did.
So if you can,
I think that I asked for harm, and the harm that you presented was a misanalogy. I think you connected two things that weren't. I think the harm was that they lied by omission.
Go ahead.
No, he's completely wrong. He didn't bring that up for that reason. He's bringing this up because he really wants the ladies to know that he's not gay.
Or that their presentation was dishonest, or that they didn't share something where there was an expectation that you clearly understood.
Their presentation isn't dishonest. The idea that they're a woman is dishonest.
What about the sports thing, though?
The sports thing is harder.
What if you just banned trans women from women's sports, but then said, well, it's okay to still affirm them. You just can't join sports. Then both problems are crossed off, surely.
Because there are some very obvious biological differences between someone that is male and someone that is female.
I'm glad this person is saying this.
And one of those things is athleticism. I mean, it's pretty hard to say that with all the information that we have, right, that a man competing against women isn't unfair. I think absolutely. And I think that identifying the difference between a biological male and the biological female and separating that from the gender conversation is beneficial now because we have some grounds to actually create that distinction where when those two things are muddy, we have less.
Okay, so we've gotten two examples. You think maybe the first one, there's probably not a harm there as long as people are honest. And the second one, there probably is.
More than that, I don't know about the US, but what Cam was describing a trans person doing to him is potentially illegal. So it's like, well, if you make all those things illegal, then, like, well, they can do that still, but they're not supposed to be doing it. And then with the sports thing, well, it's like, it kind of... People still refer to trans people as their, like, birth sex. But most, like, sporting bodies will not accept a male person in female sports anymore. So it kind of seems like that's an issue that's been dealt with, no?
Is a harm. All right, so, you know, if we are going through the method that's like language should be based on something that maximizes utility, for example, which I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it should be...
I have Vorshian argument. I don't like this argument. Words should be descriptive. Words should mean things.
Showing truth, right? I don't really see why we should make it to where it maximizes utility. But even then, you know, there are countless other examples like the...
The problem with maximizing utility is that utility is very subjective. And when people say, oh, it maximizes utility this way, so it should be this way, their bias is like almost always baked in. Like whenever trans people use the example or the argument that we should refer to trans people as the sex they prefer because it maximizes utility, as in like their feelings or whatever, they're like, there's kind of a bias there. They're not thinking about anything else. All they're thinking about is, will this be better or worse for trans people's feelings? That's what they mean by utility generally.
The second one on there, transgender children, that's a major harm that's happening, and this is a proven harm, and that's why so many countries in Europe are getting rid of this. Even the very socialist party, the very leftist party, the Labour Party in the UK is going back on this because they're realizing
What did he say?
why so many countries in Europe are getting rid of this. Even the very socialist party, the very leftist party, the Labour Party.
Even the very socialist party, the very leftist party, Labour in the UK, they're not fucking socialist or far left. What are you talking about? Why do Americans just should be banned from talking about the UK? I'm sorry, man. None of you can do it. None of you can be trusted. What are you talking about?
In the UK is going back on this because they're realizing how harmful this is for children. If we keep going this direction, I mean, there's countless topics that we could go over, even if that one
I mean, they're not going back on how you should refer to trans people, how you should define man and woman, except for in the Equality Act. Because when it comes to like legal shit, it needs a clear definition. Otherwise, you don't know who is owed those rights and who isn't. But in general, like, you want to decide for yourself that you think trans women are women, that's fine.
topic, like the dating topic, you're like, oh, I don't really see the harm there. There's just so many other topics. And even that, it's like, we just want there to be truth. You know, if you want to say you're a woman, like, you can say that all you want. You can say...
You think the Dems are far left? And it's like, yeah, probably. Yeah, fucking hell. Americans have an odd idea of what, like, left and right are, I think.
Something that's false. We're not going to stop you from saying that. You have freedom of speech. We're just saying we shouldn't accept that as truth, and we don't have to call...
Yeah, no one has to accept that as truth, for sure.
...you a woman. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is, you might not say that...
Fucking hell, it's Cam Higby's channel. This other guy, as much as he's saying some, like, really retarded shit, he's at least more sensible. Like, Cam seems like he's got no idea what the fuck he's talking about. No idea where he is. No idea what's happening. He's just throwing things out there. Like, this guy is at least, like, engaging in some kind of conversation.
You seem very reasonable, I think.
I think, honestly, he's just here to bail Cam out whenever Cam gets too retarded or opens up about his sexuality too much.
Call you a woman. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is, you might not say this. You seem very reasonable, I think. You might not say this, but a lot of people say, I'm going to get very upset at you, and maybe even there should be repercussions for you if you say I'm not a woman. And that's where our concern comes from. Ultimately, if it was just the case that people, like men dressed in skirts and grew their hair out and it's like, I'm a woman, and just did their own thing, I don't think we'd really be talking about it. The reason we're talking about it is because there are so many implications that come from... Good catch.
Okay, so first off, I don't want to say that I'm not ignoring the harm in the dating situation, right? I do, but I just want to sort of reiterate this, that I do think the harm there is not necessarily the man presenting themselves as a woman. I think the harm is being dishonest with someone that is a potential partner. I think that is a harm.
To be clear, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying
that's
like,
bad.
If what you're saying is true and like there really probably isn't a harm as long as people are being honest, then there's still lots of other things to consider. Like if I were to completely say, you're absolutely right about that, Stephen, then I would say, what about all these other things?
Okay, so the other one is the harms to children, and a few things there. One of the things I think that is more important, or one of the ways that I think this conversation generally plays out, is that the harms that we're talking about are these sort of biological harms that are the potentials of, and I guess feel free to stop me here, the medical implications. Is that what we mean by harms, or are we talking about the mental implications?
Yeah, again, we can talk about like the medical potential harms to children. It's important to note that I'm pretty sure the US has like outlawed gender affirming care for minors. Oh no, they've unveiled plans. They haven't outlawed it yet.
Well, both, because I would even oppose social transitioning for children, because I don't think that that's something.
I actually agree. I don't think you should socially transition your kid. I think you should encourage them with whatever they want to pursue, as long as it's not harmful to them in any way.
Something that's helpful, because over 90% of children who socially transition end up medically transitioning.
Okay, listen. I hate when TRAs like take one number from one study and state it like fact. He's doing the same thing here. There is like a meta study, and there are a bunch of different studies suggesting that if you just let kids go through their puberty, a bunch of them will probably desist from their like trans identity or whatever you want to call it. But like, these are like numbers from studies. These are just findings from like limited like groups of people. We don't know that it's like over 90%. So I don't really like the way he's doing this, to be honest.
Whether it be while they're minors or when they become adults.
I gotta challenge that.
This is a statistic. I don't have the exact
true.
data. I don't have the
because I know that the number of children that medically transition is insanely low. It's a very small. It's like less than 1%.
I mean, this doesn't really matter. Like, is it less than 1% of children that have gender dysphoria that transition, or less than 1% of kids total? Let trans kids be trans. Well, how do you know that they're trans? How do you screen a kid that actually is trans and was always going to be trans no matter what happened? How do you screen them from someone that might potentially change their mind one day? Do you think that children should be deciding at really, really young ages for the rest of their life whether they're going to have their own kids or not?
Of people that they've transitioned as adults. So
I would imagine most of them probably did.
Were like socially transitioned as children and then they transitioned as adults?
Yeah, I would say most of them.
Okay, yeah.
I don't have the exact source in front of me, but I'm citing a study that usually leftists cite, because they're saying, oh, look how many people end up transitioning and they don't desist.
Okay, I just wanted to preempt that because the number of actual children that have medically transitioned is negligible. It's so small. It's short.
Yeah, what he's saying really doesn't make much sense, because you'd be talking about of the ones that are dysphoric, not of all of them. Of course, very few of them are transitioning. Like, thank fuck for that. But like, this doesn't really say anything.
That's fair.
It might not be like millions.
Yeah. There's like 85 children, I think, that have gotten
And really, if your argument is, well, almost no one's doing it, well, it's like, well, then maybe you'd say there's an issue if more people are doing it. So then what's your actual issue with it? Because it's not how many people are doing it.
Surgical procedure, and there's, I think it's like 13,000 that have taken hormone therapy. It's a very, very small number.
So it's
children that are actually taking the medical. But then the social implication, like the mental issues, right? The mental and I don't know if we have the data to say that there have been medical implications to those transitions for the children, like the long-term effects. It's sort of like we don't have.
The problem is, why are we transitioning kids if we know this little about like how they're going to be like later down the line, you know?
The numbers, because they haven't occurred yet.
It doesn't matter how often it does or doesn't happen. We're saying it shouldn't happen at all.
Shouldn't happen at all. Sure. Totally fair.
Can I make a few points? Because you said several things. So on the data on transitioning, it's definitely more than 85 who have gotten surgeries. Even the insurance data that we cite, Reuters has articles on this where they talk about the insurance data that says...
You trust mental health professionals enough. Why? Because they're professionals. You shouldn't just trust someone because they've got a degree or something. You shouldn't just trust someone because they're in a certain position. Cost-benefit analysis, the number of trans kids harmed by banning trans healthcare is far greater. Is it though? Is it? I know, man. I don't see how you're harming these kids banning the trans healthcare. They want something, they're not allowed it. That's part of life. They might end up harming themselves. Some of them might end up desisting or detransitioning anyway. Kids are way more likely to go through phases. And you didn't answer my question, by the way. Do you think it's okay that we should be letting some kids decide for the rest of their life whether they're having their own kids?
Way more than 85. But the problem with using the insurance data is we still can't determine how many kids...
Listen, I forgive you because you're part of like Niara VT's like community, but Niara VT's opinions on like trans kids are like fucking whack and quite sus, honestly. I wouldn't be amazed if that person actually does have skeletons in their closet, if you know what I mean.
are actually transitioning medically, because what if they're using a different type of insurance or they're not using insurance? So most people would say, if they're like assessing all the evidence and being honest about it, they would say, we don't really know how many are transitioning, but even if it is exactly 85 who have surgically transitioned, I would say that's too many.
Okay, so one is too many, right?
Yeah.
Is the position that we're taking. That's fine. I think that whether or not it is 85 or more than 85, I think that the number is small. I think that it's so small that we would call it negligible. And I also would say that if we're talking about specific medical harms, that...
Why not just ask, like, he's such a douchebag. Why not just ask, okay, let's say that it was actually not 85, but 8,500 or 85,000. Why would you have an issue with it then, but not now? What are the actual issues you take with it?
No, well, not
It's
if you think
definitely
one
not
is more
negligible,
than...
and it doesn't matter even if it is.
Not if
right?
you think one is too
The number
many.
of children that are raped is very small, but we would never call it negligible.
I don't think I would equate those two things. But also...
They're not quite the same. And that's not, again, so what if it was more? Ask, so what if it was more?
So
I'm not equating them.
you are...
He doesn't need to get into his weird psychosexuality like every time. He can just ask like relevant questions.
equating them. You
I'm
used
not
it as an
equating
analogy.
them. I'm just comparing two things as an analogy, right? So if something
equates the
bad
same
is
thing.
happening, one second, I'm not equating.
Like soying out. This is like rightoid version of the line at times. I don't know if he's quite as bad, but like sometimes. Like this guy's been perfectly nice. You don't need to be this aggressive.
Them because equating them would be saying that child rape and child transition are the same thing. I'm not saying that. I am analogizing the two. You are saying that because this bad thing rarely happens, it doesn't matter. And if somebody said child rape is bad, but it rarely happens, so it doesn't matter, we wouldn't accept that.
Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. That wasn't my point.
The possibility of sterility is pretty low. What are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about? What if they get depressed later in life because they're sterilized and they change their mind about it, but they made that decision as a child? Do you know that if a person follows through, which most people do if they transition, sterility is like the outcome. Like I've fully transitioned. I cannot have my own kids and I never will. The difference is I made that decision when I was like 25. I don't see like transition after puberty as a death sentence. And I've no idea what my life would have been like if I'd have transitioned in, like, if I'd have blocked puberty. It might have caused all kinds of like health problems and stuff. You can't say the possibility for sterility is low. It's like inevitable. Most kids that are socially affirmed, most kids that are socially transitioned go on to take puberty blockers. And most of those go on to cross-sex hormones, where once you're on those, you've just got more chance of becoming fully sterile every day.
No, I understand because I didn't get to finish that and fully flesh that out. The reason I brought up the low numbers is just to decrease the weight of that point. But the real point, I think, is that I don't believe we have the information on the long-term effects of those to say that there have been negative medical implications because the time frame hasn't occurred yet, right? So we don't.
But then surely what the question would be is, well, why are we letting it happen on a broad scale? Why are we allowing this cottage industry when there's no real data for what they're going to be like later in life? And they're making these decisions extremely young. Most people are just not the same person. Have them freeze their eggs or sperm. You know that the chances of your frozen eggs and sperm actually producing children are not that high. You know it doesn't work all the time. You know it's like pretty energy intensive to store all that stuff. And it doesn't matter about bottom surgery. By the time you're on hormones, you're gonna be sterile at some point. If you've never been through puberty, you're never gonna have the chance not to be sterile. Because that's what puberty is for.
Know for sure that there are negative impacts to someone medically transitioning. But the more important issue, I think, is the mental implications. And that is another conversation that I think plays out generally.
Yeah, if you look at studies, there are plenty that show very little improvement in a child's mental health from being on puberty blockers.
that when we reject the idea that men can be women and women can be men, and this is where we connect the two things, the mental issues that occur for a young person that has socially transitioned is more likely to come when we reject their emotions and feelings. And so if there's a young person that says, I am a boy assigned, right, I'm male biologically, but I feel like a girl and I want to start dressing and acting like a girl, when there are grown-ups that go to that child and they say, the way that you feel is bad and the way that you feel is wrong and you shouldn't feel that way, I think that that is more likely to create mental confusion and problems than if an adult would go to that child and say, the way that you feel is okay, the way that you feel should be accepted, the way that you feel is valid, and you're allowed to feel the way that you do. I think that the mental issues that occur from that are more likely to come from the rejection and the mindset when we say men can't be women.
I don't know, man. You shouldn't give people the impression they can literally change sex in the first place. You should give the impression that they'll be able to achieve like a look and like have a body that more matches what they want it to, and that it might help them feel more comfortable. You shouldn't be like promising, oh, you're going to be able to just literally become a woman.
Okay, so if we're talking about the studies on the medical effects, whether it be hormones, so-called gender-affirming hormones, or puberty blockers, or surgical transitions, there is a lot of research on this. It's probably not enough, but there's been many peer-reviewed studies, and recently you had the CAST review in the UK. The NHS had one of their most important doctors, along with a whole team, review all of the evidence that we had on children transitioning, and they couldn't find any evidence that it benefits them. CAST review, there's been systematic reviews out of the US, the UK, Sweden, Finland, many different countries, and they've consistently found this. All of these systematic reviews. That's why a lot of these countries are rolling back these laws, and they're saying kids can't transition anymore. The UK is doing that. The US has been doing that state by state. Sweden did that. They're closing down these clinics because of malpractice. And recently, it was like 2 years.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're getting to a decent place where you can still affirm trans people if you want, and you can think what you want about what a man and a woman are. But some of the more risky shit is getting, like, closed off. So there's kind of a compromise. There we go.
Years ago, there was a whistleblower at a clinic. I believe it was in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I read her article.
Was the CAST review dunked on by the scientific community? Every review, every study, every meta-study has its criticisms, has its strong points and weak problems. But you people just come out and say, oh, it's been debunked. Oh, it's been, like, shat on. So have the stuff that you parrot. Everything has been shat on by someone. You actually have to bring, like, real points against that thing. Like, the CAST review is correct in identifying that a lot of the evidence behind trans-affirming care is actually very low quality. It's actually correct about a lot of that stuff. But people never bring any, like, real arguments. They just say, oh, it's been debunked. Why? Because Erin in the Morning did some shitty, like, fucking article about it. Erin in the Morning's an idiot.
But she was talking about all of these harms that were coming from giving these children.
Like, everyone used to cite that the BMA, the British Medical Institute, came out against the CAST review. They ended up changing their stance and becoming neutral on it.
These hormones. Like, for example, if you have a young girl who's going through puberty and you're giving her testosterone, it can do things like weaken her vaginal lining. So if she has sexual intercourse, she can actually bleed to death. The penis will break through her vaginal lining and she could bleed to death. And they had an example of one of these girls at this clinic who came in and she almost died.
Yeah, Joanna Olsen Kennedy has literally gone around saying things like, oh, it's okay to get a mastectomy. You can just get implants later in life. It's like, that's insane. Why would you say that?
And this can happen to just about anybody if they engage in sexual intercourse while they're on testosterone. So there's many different issues. I mean, puberty blockers, it can affect your bone density, it can affect your brain development. Like, this stuff is it's just not good. And we have the evidence to show it's not good. We have plenty of evidence to show it's not good.
I don't know. This is going a bit far. There's kind of evidence for and against, I would say.
Okay, so we have tons of different studies. And also, I mean, you don't necessarily in every case need a study on a particular thing to be able to come to a conclusion that it'll have adverse effects, right? Like, I've seen a couple of papers on like the brain development issue, for example. We don't have studies that are specifically examining the brain development over time, but we have people who are experts on this who say this is the type of effects that these chemicals would have on brain development.
So if
The girl in his example wouldn't bleed to death. Yeah, they do come out with a lot of like quite spurious claims. Like, it's not just TRAs that overstate a lot of their positions. Like, these people do as well.
we just quickly poll the people, what do we think this is? Like 40 people, maybe 30? I don't know. If we just quickly poll the people that are standing right here, not a single one of them, 100 out of 100, or 100% of them believe that a man can't be a woman, right? So it doesn't seem that the word, what you're trying to say is reflective, right? If you're trying to say that the majority of people, that when they say woman, men are included, it doesn't seem to match reality. If you poll...
Yeah, Alejandra Caraballo is a fucking moron. Anyone listening to that person should reevaluate some life choices, quite frankly. That person sucks.
The entire world, I guarantee you would have a result that men are not included.
Because men and women are different.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, and men cannot be women.
But male and man are not the same thing either.
They are.
So, and as...
Yeah, again, it comes back to, so what's a man then? So is a man simultaneously an adult human male and anyone that calls himself an adult human male on the basis of how they perceive a human male to be, or whatever shit. It just doesn't really make any sense. You're creating a definition that is all-inclusive and so meaningless.
As far as on a national level, it's usually about 66 to 70% who say there are two genders and kind of reject this. And that's from Pew Research, NBC, Gallup, PRRI. It's usually around the 60s.
Trans.
Merry early Christmas tree emoji.
Thank you so much, Kaylee, for the 1999. Thank you so much.
6 to 70%.
And I do believe that is a leftover, a hangover from the antiquated definition of gender, which was at one point intrinsically linked to biological
Yeah, it
sex,
doesn't matter because
but
you're
has
making the
changed.
argument that it has changed, but it is still the case that the majority of people
Yeah, he says it's changed. He hasn't given like a solid definition of what it means now, though.
think it hasn't changed. So if our language...
Okay, you're doing the same thing. They rarely happen. That's not a statement on whether it's good or not. It shouldn't happen. And like, there's examples of mastectomies being done as early as 12. There's studies of like kids that have had that kind of surgery done. They're studying people as young as 12, so it must have happened somewhere. Probably not happening much anymore, and that's a good thing. But it doesn't matter whether it's rare or not. It matters whether it happens, and should it happen. Because then you could just say, well, what if there were more of them? What would you say then? But it's just reasons to avoid actually giving an opinion on whether you think that should happen or not. Because you want it to happen, but you don't necessarily have a solid reason as to why. Or you understand the reasons against, so you kind of run to, well, it doesn't happen very often.
which is reflective of what we mean.
Prince, do you understand that when you say that, that kind of makes you just as bad? Because to lots of people like you in like Niara VT's community, call everyone a bigot. So why would anyone care what you think a rural bigot is? Everyone's welcome to have an opinion on anything. And if people have an adverse opinion, that could affect things. They're going to vote the same as you. And instead of trying to convince people that you're correct, you just say, oh, well, they're bigots, I don't care. Well, no wonder the trans side is losing the argument, you know what I mean?
When we say things, it is still the case that when the majority of people say the word woman, men are not included, right? So it hasn't changed. Colloquially, the majority of people still mean a woman like that.
It hasn't changed, really. It's like forked out.
That one right there, when they say woman. They don't mean him. They don't mean you. They don't...
Again, he's being dismissive because you have to dismiss other people in order to not actually engage with their opinions. Anyone that has an opinion that might challenge yours, you just find a way to dismiss it. And then you don't have to engage with anything. Listen, I understand. Listen, like I said, I forgive you. You're from Niara VT's community. Niara VT reasons like a fucking 10-year-old. That person is like listening to a literal child. So I'm not surprised, but you've got a lot of bad habits that you should consider getting out of, to be honest.
They don't mean me, and they don't mean Ben. They mean her.
They're talking
Right.
about the thing that they're looking at.
They're talking about
So
women.
something that
Adult
looks like
human
a woman
females
is a woman.
No, adult human females. We got more people who fall into the sexual category capable of producing ova. We got.
But what you're saying is that when we look at something and call it a woman, then it is a woman.
No, that's what you're saying.
But how would you? But that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying.
No, that's what you're saying. You're saying if it looks like a woman, it is a woman. I'm rejecting that notion. I am saying that a woman is an adult human female, and a female is a.
It's almost like whether a trans woman is a woman or not depends on how you define woman. And people are just using all different kinds of definitions now. Wow, I've learned so much.
Person who falls into the sexual category capable of producing ova. That also happens to be what the majority of people think. So the definition has not changed.
Okay.
But we have some people waiting, so I'll give you one last statement, and then we'll rotate in some new people.
Oh boy, I have to prepare a closing statement.
You don't. You don't have to. I just wanted to give you a chance to say whatever's on your chest.
I think that we have arrived at a fundamental difference in belief structures, and I think that we can agree to disagree that the definition of biological assignment at birth and gender, it seems like your belief of that is that they are the same thing, and that my belief of that is that gender is different now, and that man and women should be gender is gender, where male and female is biological sex. I think that is the difference.
Yeah, his beliefs around this are super unclear to me. Most circular argument of all time. Yeah, all of these like things. Like Cam Higby is not a good debater. The people that come up, yeah, usually they just see him and they come up and debate him. They're not exactly prepared for this kind of thing. They probably don't have very many kind of points memorized to go at him. And all that really means is like when they're holding their own against someone like Cam Higby, it's a bit embarrassing for someone like Cam Higby because they're the ones that should be like solid. They've like prepared. They should be like good at this.
We have arrived,
I agree.
and I don't think we're going to get past that, and that's totally okay.
Okay.
I also think that another difference that I don't think much, actually, that it's as much of a difference that we have. I think that the big problem in not acknowledging, and the big problem with the rhetoric that men can't be women, is that when you have that rhetoric, you're rejecting the way that people feel.
Yes.
And that is inherently bad.
I reject people
And
the way people feel all the time. If you feel like you want to kill people, I reject that. If you feel like you want to cheat on your spouse, I reject that. If you feel like you want to punch Lance in the face, I might not necessarily reject that. Just kidding. It's a joke for Lance. But you get what I'm saying? You can reject how people feel, and that's perfectly fine.
I think that when there are legitimate harms, like killing people and punching people, that we should reject. But I don't think that there is, either because there isn't enough evidence or that because the evidence is skewed, I don't think there is enough evidence to say that not calling someone or respecting the way that they feel is harmful when it is this topic specifically. And I think that's where we got.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Slide that mic back.
Oh, that was interesting.